Capitol Hoops, continuing our series Beyond the X's and O's. Today we are at Bethesda Chevy Chase High School with head coach Sean Tracy. Sean, look forward to talking to you. I went to high school with you, so I know you well. We're at my alma mater, so I'm excited to be here today, but we look forward to getting to know you a little better behind the camera.
Thanks for having me, man. Glad to have you back.
So Sean, you've been at BCC now as a head coach for what, 5-6 years?
Yeah, this will be my 6th year coming up.
So you're 6th year. Give us a little background on yourself. I mean, I know you pretty well, but tell everyone kind of where you grew up. I know you came to BCC here before you went private, but give us the info.
Let's see. Born and raised in Silver Spring, Maryland. So a native of the area. Played ball my whole life. Growing up, in my neighborhood, Liddensville, Rosemary Hills area. That's all we did every day was just play ball. I didn't really start playing organized ball until I was like 9 or 10, like 3rd grade. Played for a great coach by the name of Tony Langley, still active on the scene today. Played for Tacoma Park Rams, which kind of morphed into DC Warriors once AAU started to pick up. Like you said, went to BCC for 3 years. Well, there's an interesting backdrop to that story. So, was looking to transfer, got accepted to Bullis, played summer league with Bullis, and they had me playing JV and varsity.
This was after your 2nd year at BCC?
After my 2nd year, so
okay.
Did my sophomore year, had a great season, played JV, averaged like 20 points on the JV. So, was looking to transfer, just wanted to play ball at the next level, didn't feel like this would be a good situation for me. So, got accepted to Bullis. Was playing summer league. They had me playing JV and varsity going into my junior year, and just wasn't really feeling the fact that I was playing JV. I thought, I was ready to play at the varsity level, so decided to reject the acceptance at Bullis, and came back to BCC for my junior year, and that was in like 1999. So won a Division 2A at the time, so had a good junior year here at BCC. Wasn't really picking up too much interest from schools, so I decided, to try to transfer again, and just so happens that, I applied to Bullis, and the admissions officer was telling me that in the first time in school history that someone had gotten accepted, rejected the acceptance, and then reapplied and got accepted again. So reclassified, did my junior year over at Bullis, and the rest is kind of history. So went off after Bullis and played 4 years at Drake University.
And in addition to basketball, I know you were a football player as well.
Yeah, so played football as a kid coming up. It was interesting when I was a junior here at BCC. I decided to stop playing football. Just focus on basketball. Was trying to follow in my brother's footsteps. My brother, similar story to mine. Went to BCC for a couple years and transferred to Dunbar down in DC. They won the city title back in '93. He was first team All-Met. So. Was trying to follow in Big Bro's footsteps.
As All-Met, first team All-Met in football or basketball?
In basketball,
okay.
Yeah. But so I decided, that's why I tell that little story, that I wanted to stop playing football to really focus on the basketball piece to try to follow in Big Bro's footsteps. So when I transferred to Bullis, you had to play 2 sports.
Really?
Yeah. There's no PE class, so. To make sure that you're getting, your physical education requirements, you had to play 2 sports or participate in one of the theater or arts events. Decided that I didn't want to do theater, so decided to get back in football, and I thought it was one of the best decisions I'd ever made. My junior year, we had just a ton of talent. We had Serge Teacom, was our running back, who played linebacker at UMass. We had Tenard Jackson, lockdown corner, played at Syracuse, had a run with the Skins for a little bit. We had Rashad Woodard, played at Delaware. We had a slew of D1 guys on that team. So junior year, we went undefeated. We're 10-0. Came back senior year, almost had a perfect season. We were 8-0 going into our last game of the season. We played Georgetown Prep at home. They had Marcus Mason on that team, another local guy. And ended up losing to Prep our last game. So we ran it 18 games in a row over 2 years.
Wow.
And lost that last game.
So tell me about your basketball career at BCC and at Bullis prior to going off to Drake.
Like I said, played JV my 10th grade year. I tried out for varsity. I thought, I was going to be able to make the varsity as a sophomore.
Who was the head coach at the time?
At the time, it was Bill Wright. Bill
Okay.
Wright, that was his last year.
Okay.
And didn't make varsity, so played JV. Had a great JV season, like I said, averaged about 20 points. And then I was just, like I said, trying to follow in my brother's footsteps. And at the time, Bill Wright had just stepped down. We had a new coach, Kevin Lowndes, and he did a good job with what he had. But I just felt like I wanted a little bit more structured program that did more stuff in the off season, and that would probably be able to give me more exposure. So was looking to transfer. Didn't necessarily get recruited by Bullis. So there's a funny another story that goes with that. A good friend of mine, Serge Teacom, who had also went to BCC with me, he had transferred to Bullis the year prior to me coming, and he took a visit up to Bullis, and he asked me to come along with him. So I'm up at Bullis with Serge on his visit. We're walking through the gym. Introduced me to the basketball coach. He asked if I could play. I said yeah, and he came and checked me out. And I guess they liked what they saw, and so they offered me an opportunity to come to Bullis, and that's where I landed.
So were there other private schools that you were looking at, or was Bullis kind of the only spot?
No, not really. Like I said, the privates, they've always been good in the area. Obviously, the WCAC being one of the best leagues in the country, but they weren't, I don't think, recruiting the public school guys as heavily as they
Right.
are now. So wasn't really being recruited by anybody. It was just kind of a fluke situation that kind of worked out in my favor.
So after Bullis, you get a full scholarship to go play at Drake.
Right, yeah, so played ball at Bullis for 2 years. We had 2 undefeated IAC seasons, won the IAC 2 years in a row. I think we were ranked like 13 in the post. So had some success at Bullis. And then, yeah, got a full scholarship to play ball at Drake.
And you were like a wing?
Truth be told, man, I played everything.
Yeah.
Played everything. Coach Hibbs, my high school coach at Bullis, one of the best coaches I've ever had. Really, taught the fundamentals. Really gave me, what I have now and what I try to give back to kids. But he had me play everything. I played point guard. I played shooting guard, small forward. Even he threw me at the center. I'm in the post battling with the big boys. But I played 1 through 5. 1 through 5.
Okay. So you get to Drake, and walk me through your career at Drake.
So I played 4 years. I was recruited by Kirk Kanaski. At the time, he was the head coach. Had a great freshman season. Played a few games. At the end of the year, I was awarded the most improved player.
Okay.
We didn't have a great season, so Kirk Kanaski actually resigned. He stepped down, and then that's when the Dr. Tom Davis era came in. So my sophomore year, a new coach came in, Dr. Tom Davis, and he brought in his guys, and we didn't, I guess I'll just be honest, didn't really see eye to eye. He's a great coach. I learned a lot from him, but when a new coach comes in, they bring in their staff. He brought in his recruits. So I was one of the only guys that came in with that freshman class. I think there were 5 of us that stuck around, and
So I'm curious, did transferring enter your mind? I talk to a lot of coaches these days, and they talk about how they really like kids to see things through, and when there's a
Right.
sign of adversity, not to transfer, not to jump up. But it seems like you were in a situation where perhaps transferring could have been a good move. I mean, I'm sure it entered your mind. I'm sure you talked about it with your family.
Definitely.
Walk me through that.
So, first people, that I talked to were my teammates, because we were like, oh man, coach is gone, what are we going to do? So some guys immediately was like, man, I'm out, I'm transferring. And I was just like, I called my father, I called my brother, I talked it over with them, but in my mind it was like, I had worked really hard to get to that level, Drake being a mid-major D1. And, some guys went to JUCO, some guys went down to D2. And I was like, what, I like it here. Obviously I chose the school for a reason. I like the campus, the facilities were great. It was just a good fit for me. So I decided that, I was just going to stick it out. When Dr. Tom Davis came in, I told him that, I was going to stick it out and, I'd work harder than anybody that he brought in. And eventually I ended up getting a starting spot my senior year, got injured. So it's just the way things go.
What did you study at Drake?
I started off as a business major and finished as a journalism and mass communications major.
Wow, and how was that?
It was cool. The business was, I thought, I wanted to own my business, so I got into business school. Some of my upperclassmen teammates were taking some of the finance classes, and so I was like, I don't know if I want to go this route. Just seeing the struggle that they were going through, and I was always pretty good at math, but I didn't want to do the high-level finance stuff, so I was like, you know what, I'll just settle for something that'll allow me to express myself a little bit more creatively, so I majored in advertising and got my degree in journalism.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you finished at Drake?
Finished at Drake in 06.
Okay.
Got my degree, so came home, and it's time to look for a job. So first job I got back when got back from school was at the Cofield Community Center. Started off Cofield Community Center, right down the street here off East West Highway.
Okay.
Working the front desk. Then the director at the time, Ron Martin, he asked me if I would be interested in directing the after-school program. And so that's when I started to get involved working with kids. We started to do some basketball stuff after school for the kids. And I asked them, anybody that knows this area, and BCC in particular, knows that anytime, BCC has been at the forefront in basketball, they've had guys that have come through and from that area, especially in particular Cofield. And there weren't any teams. There were no teams for the young kids. And I mean, we had a great, brand new gym and kids just running around, but there were no teams at the time. So me, a buddy of mine, Frank Peterson, Carl Buck, also guys that came up and went to BCC, we decided to start a little AAU team. So we started a team for third graders. It was called Rosemary Revolution. We entered in the Montgomery County Rec League at first, and we did some AAU tournaments in the area, and then that's kind of where I got my start coaching.
So how long were you doing that for?
Let's see. Did that for about 4 or 5 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It was a good experience, just being able to give back to my community, help some of the young guys that were coming up in my footsteps and wanting to get to that next level. And we had a lot of talent in the area, but so it was just a shock to me that we had no team for all these guys. So me and, like I said, me and two of my buddies, we pretty much did everything out of pocket. We bought the uniforms, paid the league fees, and just started playing.
So what happened after that?
Let's see, did that for a few years, and it was great. The guys, we stuck with them till they were about in the 8th grade. And it was funny because it was one day, anybody that knows me knows that, some people call me like a visionary. I have like these visions and I see things, and I said one day, I'm going to coach these guys in high school. And at the time, so I was still directing the after school program, and that was great, but it wasn't the career that I was necessarily looking for. So I ended up going back to school, went back to GW, got my master's in education. And that's when I became an educator. So started off as a paraeducator in the county, just as a teacher's aide.
At BCC or somewhere else?
At BCC,
okay.
Yeah. Just spot opened up, applied, got the job, and Montgomery County Public Schools and George Washington have a partnership. So went back to GW for 2 years and got my master's in education. And then decided, wanted to coach at the high school level, so I started off as a volunteer assistant under Steve Thompson, and that was my first high school coaching job.
What year was that?
Oh, probably 2008.
So were you coaching when they had those really good teams that came with Austin Cooley?
Austin Cooley, I was that was Austin's senior year. I was an assistant on that team, yeah. And
Okay.
Austin Cooley, and then we had Jerome Seegers come through.
Right.
Greg Jules. I had a few guys come through.
So you're under Steve Thompson for how long?
2 years. 2
years?
Yep.
And then from there, when he steps down, you get the head coaching job immediately, or
no?
remind
So
me what happened?
I applied for it, and it was kind of at the time I was finishing up grad school, and Principal Locker thought that it would kind of be a bit much for me to handle, just finishing up or trying to finish up grad school and then trying to be a varsity head coach at the same time. So she told me to be patient, and she said that, and our coach, she said, one day you'll be the coach at BCC. And I listened to her. I respected what she had to say and her opinion, And so I just kind of continued to assist. At that time,
Pegram, right?
Damon Pigram came in. So
Right,
Damon
right.
Pigram became the head coach at BCC, and I was his assistant for a year. And about halfway through the season, the JV coach at the time, Mark Carver, stepped down, and I took over the JV for BCC. So I was now the head JV coach here at BCC.
And how long? Just that 1 year you were?
Yeah, did that for a year. Coach Pigram stayed, I believe, 2 years.
Right.
And then
He left for Blair.
he left for Blair. The job opened up again,
Brazel.
and then Coach Breslaw took over.
Right. And he was here for 1 year?
Yeah, he was here. And then I kind of just stepped back from coaching altogether.
You weren't coaching at all when Breslaw was here?
No, yeah, I didn't assist Breslaw when he was coaching here.
So Breslaw takes off for Richard Montgomery when that job opens up.
That job opened up. BCC opened up. I was still teaching in the building, so applied and I was hired.
Take me through that interview process. Who hired you? Who'd you talk to? Was there a lot of competition? I mean, walk me through that whole thing.
There was a lot of people, from what I've heard, that applied. We had a new AD at the time, Jim Tapley. He had just gotten the AD job. Karen Locker was still the principal. There were a host of people on the panel, but it was a pretty, I guess, standard interview. They asked me some questions about my background, what my vision and philosophy was for the program, and just it was a great interview. I felt like I had an in because I was a teacher at the school, and
Right.
I went here back in the late '90s, so I think I had a leg up over some of the other candidates. But it was a great interview, went well. Believe they called me back, I think that evening, and told me I got the job.
So 6 years later, here we are. We'll walk through your 6 years in a minute, but tell me right now how you think you've done as a coach, how you think you've grown as a coach, what you've learned that maybe you didn't know about yourself in the 6 years you've been the head coach, and then we'll digress and kind of go year by year.
I learned a lot. I learned that it takes a lot to achieve at the high level that we, in our program that we aspire to. And just a lot of late nights, early mornings. You have some days, you get here at 7 in the morning, I teach in the building, and you don't leave, after a late Friday night game, you get home 10 o'clock, and you have a family that you might not see all day. But, I learned a lot about myself as a person and just how to kind of put together a program, because in years prior, there's been a lot of success at BCC, but I wanted a program that I had, when I played ball in college, the type of program that I had when I was at Bullis, the type of program where guys, when they left, they came back and, they really felt and appreciated, the coaching and the life skills that we imparted on them.
What has been maybe the biggest adjustment from being a D1 player to being a head coach? Something that maybe when you were a player you never thought of, but now it's something that you have to face, something that you have to deal with on a daily basis.
I think sometimes people think that when you're a player, there's like a direct correlation with you being able to coach, and that's not the case. I learned that you have to put a lot into your craft. I've had some great coaches, from when I was in Little League, Tony Langley for Tacoma Park, Mike Hibbs, who came under the Morgan Wooten umbrella, Dr. Tom Davis, who was, legendary coach in the NCAA. But I think that if you don't put in your own time and really try to learn the game and really just pick other coaches' brains, I think that's the one thing that, as a player, you kind of just, you're given a scouting report. You have, your God-given talent, your athleticism, your work ethic. But as a coach, you have to kind of take, 14, 15 personalities and then try to get them to buy in and believe in the oneness of the program and the team.
If we ask some of your past players or current players what type of coach you are, what do you think we would hear?
I think they all say I'm a player's coach just because I've played, I'm fairly young, so I can relate. But that'd probably be the number one thing they say, I'm a player's coach. And, I really try to understand, I can't understand where they're coming from because I'm not too far removed.
Right.
But yeah, that'd be the number one thing.
You guys had an incredible year a few years back.
Mm-hmm.
Made it to Comcast, upset a Duval team with a buzzer beater to get to the state finals. I know expectations coming into this season are probably the biggest they've ever been under your regime. But walk me through the first 6 years of BCC and kind of how you think you guys have grown, and then we'll lead into this upcoming season.
It was a rough first couple of years. Let's see, the first year I was head coach, we won 4 games. Second year we won 5. And it was just a challenge, like I said initially, just getting those guys to buy in. And that first group, when I got the seniors, they had a different coach almost every year. So they had, in my opinion, like this sense of like abandonment. So it was hard for them to really buy in to what I was selling. And all I was really selling was to get them to believe in one another, believe in the coaching staff, and just to work their butts off, put in the time. So it was a rough start, and I learned a lot. Go ahead.
You win 9 games after 2 years. Are you thinking maybe this profession isn't for me, maybe this school isn't for me, maybe this situation isn't for me? I mean, I'm sure at some point you had to have thought like maybe this basketball coaching thing isn't going to work out. Give me your thoughts on that.
The type of guy, like, I can remember when I first got the job, you came to one of the scrimmages, we did an interview, and towards the post-exit interview, I was talking about winning the state championship. So in my mind, that's always been, a goal that we set as a team. But more than winning a state championship, just the idea of developing players. And so it was rough, man. It was rough just not winning. You hear, when I met a teacher in the building, you're hearing, the staff and different students talk about, the program and how it once was, we had these glory years not too long ago, and how, BCC can't win a game. But I never doubted myself. I never doubted my guys. I think it was the group, when we made that run to the state championship, that was the most close-knit group, the group that bought in the most, and the group that put in the most work. And I think that's why we had the success that we did. But never doubted myself, just kept going back to the drawing boards, just putting in more work as a coach, just really trying to hone in on my craft and develop myself as much as I could so that I can help develop these guys.
Let's talk about that team that made the state championship game. That was, an incredible year. You guys in the 4A West regionals really surprised a lot of people. I think that region was kind of up for grabs that year. I don't think BCC was on the top of many people's lists, but walk me through that run.
Man, it was a heck of a run. We hit a stretch where we were over at Richard Montgomery, and we lost pretty bad. It was a tough loss, and in the locker room, some of our guys were at odds with one another, and I hadn't seen this all year, but guys were starting to point some fingers, and coaches came in. We talked to the guys, and we made it a point from that day forward to not take any more steps backwards. And to not place blame. It was just one of those games, the ball wasn't falling for us. So, and we just moved forward. And we went on, I believe it was like a 10-game win streak to finish the season. And the guys, the camaraderie and just facing that adversity in a game that we felt like, we were evenly matched with Richard Montgomery, but for whatever reason, they had beat us, twice in the regular season. We had our number. So we just kept working, man. We just kept working, just really put in the work.
You're at Xfinity. You're going up against a Duval team, a great 4A PG County team,
right,
with a terrific player in Edward Polite.
Right.
Walk me through that game.
It was a great game, very competitive. Your typical semifinal game at Comcast, or Xfinity rather. And it's 2.8 seconds from what I can remember. Polite's at the free throw line with a chance to win the game. It was tied up. He missed both free throws. So we took a shot at it, didn't make it. So overtime. Again, overtime, back and forth. They go up 1. Polite goes back to the free throw line. This time he hits 1, I think, 1 of 2, and they go up 1. I think like maybe 10, 12 seconds left. We get it across half, call a timeout, draw up a play. We had set up, ironically, a place called Maryland, pick and roll at the top of the key for Kevin Holston, and I think it was Yannick Alexis who was in the pick and roll with them. So pick and roll, Kevin's coming off the pick right at the top of the key area. He's going downhill, takes like this fadeaway floater, Polite blocks it. Yannick Alexis, who had rolled to the basket, was right there at the right time, caught it with point whatever on the clock, just puts it up, ball goes in, the rest is history.
I remember after that shot drop, I ran out to the court and gave you a chest bump.
Man, that was the greatest feeling ever, man. We had the guys that just put in so much work.
Yeah.
Everybody was saying, Cinderella, Cinderella. And I guess, looking back at it, nobody saw us getting, to that point. So I guess technically it would have been considered a Cinderella, but, we believed from day one, guys that put in a lot of work over the summer, waking up at 5 a.m., hitting the weights on the track. So,
what did it mean for you personally that you win a game at Comcast or Xfinity after the struggles that kind of you faced early on in your career, and the fact that you didn't have you didn't have an amazing team per se. I mean, you had a very good team that year,
right,
but you didn't have a team at the beginning of the year like perhaps you have this coming season where people are like, that's the team to beat.
Right. It was just validation, and just the stick-to-itiveness I think that I have, not to give up. Winning 9 games over 2 years, it's easy to get down, but, I just have that never say never, never give up attitude, and that's what I try to instill in our guys. And, we believed, that group believed, and that was the reason, I think, above everything, that they believed in one another, they believed in the coaching staff, and they just believed in the process, and we just grinded at it day after day, and we tried to just always just focus on taking it one day at a time, just trying to get better individually, get better as a team, and then, we just want to be playing our best basketball towards the end of the season, around February. And like I said, we had that loss at Richard Montgomery, and then we went on that 10-game win streak, and then we just, stuff just started clicking.
So 2 days after you beat Duval, you guys run into Meade, who had a phenomenal year that year.
Yeah.
You guys got blown out of the building. Walk me through that game and how, coming off such an amazing high, you kind of end your season in a game that's just not even competitive from the jump.
Yeah, I mean, we joke now. Everybody calls it the Meade Invitational. I mean, they beat. If you go back and look up the playoff bracket, they beat everybody by at least 30, an average of 30 points. We ended up losing, I think, by 35. But they were just a great team, very well coached team, very disciplined, very athletic. They forced us into a lot of different turnovers. Turnovers that we hadn't made late in the season, a lot of unforced turnovers just because of the pressure that they applied. But it was an interesting game. I learned a lot. I think our guys learned a lot too. We hadn't played a game without, I think Kevin, he was in foul trouble very early. Yeah. And, he was very foul prone and got in foul trouble a lot, but I don't think we had played, he had not gotten in foul trouble that early all season. And that really hurt us. And when he went to the bench, him being one of our leading scorers, we were kind of
ball handlers against that pressure.
Ball handlers against the pressure. Yeah. So we had to try to find other guys that to get going, and nobody really picked up the slack.
So walking through the last couple years leading into this year, you've had good teams, but just kind of get us up to date over those years in between then and now.
Right. Like you said, some good teams. I felt like last year, even the year before, kind of underachieved. If you look at the size that we've had and just the level of talent that we've had, just didn't really reach the level of success that we, as a team, thought that we'd be able to.
Is there anything that's attributed to?
Yeah, you sit back after a season, you reflect, you think about it, and there's not one thing that I can pinpoint. I could talk about, leadership. In comparison to the leadership we had when we made the state run, we had, 5 seniors that really led the team. And in the past couple of years, we've had some very talented guys that just haven't really had the leadership abilities that we've needed to really get to that level that we're trying to get back to. So, but It could be a lot of different things. Just chemistry being one. That's always big. You try to build a team, throughout the summer and in the fall, and hopefully the chemistry's right, once that season starts and rolling into the season. But we just haven't had, I think, the leadership and the chemistry that we've had, or that we had that year when we made that run.
Last year, you guys had Cameron Gallic on your team, great player who I think got a preferred walk-on spot at Tulane.
Yep.
Tell me about Cam's career here.
Man, probably one of the most talented guys, just naturally talented guys I've seen. Could play inside, could play outside. He started off as a small forward, ended up playing him at power forward, eventually played him a little bit at point guard. Just a very high IQ, has a good feel for the game, knows where to be at the right time. Just a great kid. I really enjoyed coaching him over the years. Watching him grow. He started with the JV with Brandon Howell, who's now one of my assistants. It helped that he grew like 3 or 4 inches and ended up being like 6'6", 6'7". Right. But it was a great, couple of years getting an opportunity to coach him. Cam was one of the guys, as a sophomore, was on that state finalist team. So he, he had a lot of experience over the years that he was able to kind of pass down to some of the younger guys that are still around in the program.
So here we are, present day.
The
team is practicing right now for Fall League. I think they get, 1 practice per game. Yeah. They're doing that right now with some of your volunteer coaches.
Right.
You guys have high expectations coming into this year. I think if you were to talk to most kind of insiders in the area, they would say that you and Springbrook and possibly Paint Branch are the top 3 teams in the area. How do you, what's going on knowing that the target is on your back and you have a lot of expectations this year, and you have kind of a young team? I mean, your best player is a sophomore. Walk me through all that.
We've had the target on our backs before, after the run.
But you're the favorite this year. I mean, going into that year, I guess.
I was going to say after we made the state championship run, we were ranked in the post, high expectations. Pretty much, I would say, the team to beat in the county for the most part. And so you never want to, look too heavily into the preseason and the rankings and, what people's projections are. Just want to take it one day at a time. Use this time in the fall to really try to get the guys to build that chemistry, like I said. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it's wide open. I think every year we come in, obviously the end game is to win it all. But I think we have the right pieces. Now, whether or not, my coaching staff and if we can put those pieces together in the right amount of time, there's a lot of different things that go into, building a state championship team. So only time will tell.
Talk to me about your personnel this year. I know you guys have a couple of transfers.
Got a couple of transfers. I have a good core group of guys coming back. Gordon Gibson, 6'7" center, did a lot for us last year. Was our big presence in the post. He's back. Miles English, he was a starter for us last year. Really emerged last year as one of our better players, one of our most efficient players. Doesn't do anything fancy, doesn't do anything special, but he gets the job done. Very fundamentally sound. So looking forward to seeing a lot of good things out of him. We also have Thomas Bayer. He's been in the program for 4 years. He's a senior. He was a freshman that got moved up on that state champion. I keep saying state championship. Mm-hmm. State finalist team. Almost.
32 minutes away.
Right. So we got, Thomas is a sharpshooter. Looking to get some leadership out of those guys who have been around. And then in addition to having a few guys transfer in, it's been interesting. Every year that I've been here, we've had guys transfer in. I just think, the area that we're in, it's kind of a hotbed for that. You have guys that go off to privates, guys that come back from privates for whatever reason. So we have some of those transfers this year.
And you want to tell me about any of those transfers?
Yeah, I think the one that everybody's heard about the most. Funny story. So I guess Elijah Wood made a post that he was coming to BCC over the summer on Twitter or something. And I'm getting texts from different coaches and different people in the area saying, what's going on with this Elijah Wood kid? And at the time, I didn't really know who he was. I had heard about him, but hadn't seen him play, didn't know about him, just heard that he was a good talent. So I'm just like, I had no idea what was going on. So then I show up first day of school, and it was official. You know, he was transferred, he was in. You know, now that I've gotten a chance to see him over the course of the fall, very talented, very athletic, has a tremendous upside, very selfless, very good passer. Yeah, I'm looking forward to really getting an opportunity to coach him and help him develop over the next couple of years.
So from what I've heard, he's about a 6'4" point guard,
Yeah.
right? And from what I've heard, there have been a lot of high majors coming in here to watch some of his workouts. And, you know, that's something that I don't think BCC is very accustomed to. This new kid transfers in, has never even played a game for BCC, and he's got, you know, all these high majors. It's a pretty interesting dynamic.
It really is. I mean, but I think the guys have handled it well. I think, you know, they've kind of welcomed him with open arms. And I've been telling some of the guys, you know, because they can learn from my experience. I wasn't, you know, highly sought after when I was in high school. We had a guy, Wade Dunstan, who was all Met, ended up playing at St. Bonaventure, who, you know, we had, you name it, they were in the gym to see him. And that's kind of how I kind of ended up at Drake. You know, coaches coming in the gym to see him, and they kind of like what they saw in me. So I tell my guys all the time, like, you know, when coaches are here to see Elijah, use this as an opportunity because, you know, coaches talk. So they might not take an interest in you per se, but they might know another coach that might be interested. So it's just been a great experience having, you know, the coaches in the gym just to pick their brains and hear, you know, from what they see in them as a young player and a young talent.
And in addition to Elijah, there's another transfer too, right?
Yeah, Justin Graves. He's also coming in from St. Andrews. Just getting a chance to see him, you know, I actually got a chance to see him over the summer. He played with us towards the end of the summer over in the DeMatha League. Strong athletic build, finishes at the rim well, has a pretty good shot. Tenacious, could be a tenacious defender. I'd like to see him really pick that up. I think he could be one of our lockdown defenders. So I think he has a tremendous upside. He'll be a junior, so we'll have him here for 2 years. So just looking forward to see how those new guys really fit in with some of the old veterans and just trying to get that chemistry down.
Brandon Howell, former classmate of ours at BCC.
Yep.
Your right-hand man does a lot helping you out in terms of player development, in terms of just a lot of different things.
Right.
I know he's a volunteer coach. Tell me what Brandon, what he means to your program, how much you trust him, and just kind of, I mean, he's got his hands on everything, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, that's my guy. Grew up with Brandon, known him ever since middle school. He's somebody that, you know, he loves the game. He's very passionate about the game. He loves giving back. He's gotten a number of kids into college. That's something that, you know, he kind of does for us. He has the relationship with a lot of the schools, so, you know, we get him the film, he sends it out, he makes the calls. You know, in addition to him training, you know, he does a great job with his training. I think it's just a great fit to have somebody that I can trust, somebody that I grew up with, somebody that, you know, knows the game and wants to grow as a coach and as a trainer right by my side.
Talking about the rest of your staff, I know.
Yeah, we have a great staff, man. Last year we added Anthony Dickens, who he's been around forever. I think he's been coaching for 35 plus years. Was formerly at Northwood High School. He stayed there for I think about 10 years.
As the head coach.
As the head coach, yeah, he was the head coach over at Northwood. Prior to that, he was the head coach over at Northwestern, where he won a state championship back in '04 with Jeff Green. Prior to that, you know, like I said, he goes way back. He was coaching over in Ohio and Akron, had some nationally ranked teams. So, you know, he has a wealth of experience. You know, I learn from him almost every day. I'm just very appreciative to have someone with his level of experience, his level of expertise on the staff. He really does a good job of developing our guys, especially, you know, just really honing in on the fundamentals, which I think, you know, sometimes, especially with the AAU and a lot of other things going on in today's game, kind of get lost in the mix. So we also have Guy Nelson on our staff, who's a BCC alum. Back in the late 70s, early 80s, he attended BCC. He just brings a wealth of knowledge. He's been coaching the game for over 30 years. We also have Dave Thompson, who he volunteer coaches the softball with the football team. Just a great guy. really keeps me on my toes, make sure I'm not forgetting anything. So I have a great staff around me, and I think that's part of why we've had some of the success that we've had over the years.
Have you had any, like, I don't know if role models is the right word, but any people who have kind of been instrumental in kind of you taking up the whole coaching, the passion you have for coaching?
Yeah, totally. I've had some great coaches. I can start probably with one of my first coaches ever, a man by the name of Lionel Finley. He coached us for the Rosemary Raiders. He was just a guy that lived in the community. His son played for the team, Chris Finley, and he just gave us something for us to do. This was football. This is probably one of the first teams I ever played for.
Okay.
And he really looked out for us and made sure that we had something to do after school, and that's how I kind of got into sport. And then I'd have to also mention Tony Langley with the Tacoma Park Rams. I played football for him as well, but I'll never forget this day. I was probably in the 4th grade. Tony lined us all up at the end of practice, and he told us, every single one of us, probably 10 or 12 kids, he told us every single one of us could play Division I basketball if we put in the work, kept our grades up.
This is a football coach saying this?
This is a football coach, and he also coached basketball.
Okay.
He really just kind of inspired me with those words, and just kind of gave me the drive and just the inspiration that I needed to really chase that dream. And I don't know what it was. I just believed him, and I just put in the work. And he's still someone that I keep in touch with to this day. Very instrumental in my development as a player and just as a person. And then there are a few guys. I had some great coaches in high school. When I was here at BCC, Mr. Oliphant, Coach Oliphant, was also my guidance counselor. Just a great guy. He really was probably one of the first guys that really got me to focus in and take basketball serious. He used to have us in the weight room when we were in freshmen, sophomores. We would have these 3-on-3 battles with myself, Brandon, Howell, Freddie. And he would jump in with us, and just those are days, times I'll never forget that he really just kind of helped me get to that next level and inspired me again to say that you can do this. And
yeah, I remember Oliphant from my days here.
Yeah, great guy, man, great guy. So I got to give a shout out to Skip. And then lastly, I'd probably say my high school coach over at Bullis, Mike Hibbs. I talked about him briefly a little bit, but he was the guy I think that really, kind of sealed the deal. And I had believed that I could play at the next level, but when I got to Bullis and played for him, with his, he had a great program and just really, really motivated me and really pushed me and really taught me some of the fundamentals of the game that I now try to give back to my guys. But Mike Hibbs was, a great coach, and I learned a great deal from him. So, I take, as a coach now, I take from all of those guys, all of those life lessons that I've learned from them, and I try to instill it, in my coaching and try to impart that on my guys, when I coach.
Shot clock. Shot clock is a big topic. You played with a shot clock in college, which I think should help you out a little bit. But a lot of coaches who I've talked to think that some coaches are going to get exposed with this shot clock. They're not going to know how to get 2-for-1s. They're going to panic and not know in what situations to foul versus not foul at the end of games. Where are you with the whole shot clock thing?
I've felt like it's, long overdue. I just feel like it's a part of our game now. At every level, pro, college, girls' high school in the state of Maryland has had it for years. I feel like we're a little bit behind. Private schools, the WCAC, IAC, they've had it for years. I just think it really helps manage the game a little bit better. There are instances where teams get up and just hold the ball. I myself have done it. I understand it's a strategy. I've done that. I just feel like, but the style that I want to play and the personnel that that I've had, where we want to get up and down, I think it'll allow us to do some different things, give us some different looks that we're not able to do without the shot clock. So I'm for it. Like you said, I know some coaches are against it, but I think the game has evolved. High school basketball in the state of Maryland needs the shot clock.
Have you or will you spend time kind of like researching how to utilize the shot clock appropriately, how to coach your kids to learn how to use the shot clock appropriately? Where are you at from a strategy perspective?
Fortunately, we played in the DeMatha Summer League, which has a shot clock, so the guys got a little glimpse of it there. Didn't have any shot clock violations that I can recall. Obviously, it is, big strategy. It comes into play in certain instances, different time, different score situations. Like I said, I have a great coaching staff around me. I haven't put too much thought into it. I think just the style that we'll play and the type of guys that we have, I don't think it'll be an issue. But as far as those particular instances where you do have to, take note of shot clock and strategize, I think we'll be fine. Like I said, we have a wealth of experience on the coaching staff. I played with it when I was in college. I don't think it'll be an issue.
Talk to me about AAU basketball. I know that you coached AAU basketball a little bit.
A little bit.
You're around the AAU basketball game. Give me your thoughts on AAU basketball.
It's definitely evolved over the years. When I was coming up, didn't really play too much AAU. I went to a couple tournaments down North Carolina, never really, and when I was coming up in the late 90s, there were a handful of AAU teams in this area. You had Silver Spring Blue Devils, then DC Assault came on, and now, Takeover and a whole slew of other teams. But it's definitely evolved. Like I said, I didn't really play AAU and was still able to earn a Division I scholarship, whereas now a lot of guys in high school, they get their primary looks from the AAU circuit.
Right.
So I think it's good for the guys. It gives them an opportunity to travel, get that experience, getting out, traveling across the country. And they play against the top talent. If you're on one of the elite teams, you play against the best guys. So obviously, that's a plus. But I think it's great. I think, if you look at it from a college coach standpoint, what makes more sense? You go to a high school gym where you can see 2 or 3 guys versus one of these EYBLs or Adidas circuit tournaments where you can see 15, 20 top prospects. I mean, it's a no-brainer for a college coach. So I think it gives our guys exposure. So I like it.
So Sean, as someone who went to BCC and someone who coached at BCC and someone who's lived kind of in the BCC area for the last your entire life, minus college, pretty much. Talk to me about some of the players that maybe just when you think of BCC basketball, give me some names that are kind of synonymous with BCC basketball.
Wow. Let's see. I probably have to separate into like 3 different eras. Like the guys I looked up to growing up as a kid that came up, with my brother Claude Green. And then, obviously my era, and then, some guys that were in your era a little bit older than me myself. But, start with my brother Claude and, guys like Mike McCroy, guys that were in the neighborhood that I kind of looked up to and really tried to pattern my game after. You got Michael Demetrius, another guy that played in the late 80s, early 90s. Mookie Sutton, Mark Carver, who won a state championship back in '84. Andre Cumberbatch, another guy from my community that I kind of looked up to growing up. And then if you look at, your era with you guys, being a little bit older than myself, I mean, you got guys, legendary battles like with, Sean Harris, the Adeboyku brothers, Tosin and Yinka, Donnie Wright, you got Kevin Lanick. The list goes on, guys like Justin Harry. Who else we got? Jaja Charles, that was one of the guys that I looked up to, who's a little bit older than me, and, just loved the way he used to play. Ben Bisahoya, one of the best passers I've seen. I can go on. Ade Segunro. Who else we have? Marshall Creighton, Sean Ellis. Like I said, the list goes on. Another one I'm forgetting, Haki, The Cure Muhammad. A lot of guys have come through, and then if you look at some of the guys that came up after me and under me, guys like Carl Buck, Darren Smith, who, they got to the state finals a few times. Yeah. Guys that came a little bit later, Jerome Segeers, Greg Jules. Who else we have? I know I'm missing a bunch. The McBurney twins, Christian Hernandez, Nate Koenig, guys that are in the record books, Maurice Pearson. Who else? How can I forget? Austin Cooley, all met. Yeah. Big John Gregg. I can go on and on and on. I think, that's a good list of guys that really stand out in my mind. Like I said, guys that I kind of looked up to and guys that kind of came after me. That really have a rich tradition. Guys that, reached back out to me when we made that state run. It was just good to hear from all of those guys and to have them support, our championship run. And I'm hoping that they come out this year and support, the Barons as we make another push towards Xfinity.
How about coaches at BCC? I know when you were here, Thompson and then Kevin Lowndes, but I know Bill Wright was here for a long time. Did those guys have any kind of influence on your
Oh, definitely. Bill Wright was, he was a PE teacher when I was here, so learned a lot from him as a student, in PE class, and as well as a coach. I was on the JV when he was a varsity coach for his last year. Him being the last coach to win a state title here back in '84 definitely left a lasting impression, on the BCC basketball program. I was assistant with Steve Thompson for a few years. Learned a lot from him. Just good to really come up under some guys that have, won and competed at the high level and have had some success. So those are really the two defining eras that I remember, the Bill Wright era and then the Steve Thompson era. And then, I'm trying to build on that legacy and add on to the legacy in the way that I can.
What about some memories, like when you were a kid, maybe playing on JV, you came to varsity games? Are there any like basketball memories that you think of?
There's one distinct memory. I remember had to be in elementary school at the time. My brother was playing here at BCC, and after the game, just talking to Coach Wright, and I remember him saying, like, one day you're going to be here, looking forward to having you. So I didn't get a chance to play for Coach Wright, but that memory stands out. My JV year as a sophomore, that was like a redemption tour. Like, I was just so pissed for not making varsity. Like, I just went out and tried to score 30 every night, and that was one of my best memories as a Baron. What else? My junior year when we won the division, we had, the school was under construction, so we were at Northwood. We were at Northwood.
Right.
And just, playing with guys that I'm still friends with to this day, guys like Freddie Davis, Brandon Howell, Darnell Parrish, Udowski Jackson, all of those guys, Matt Beck, just guys that I grew up with and still kind of talk to this day. Those will always be memories that I'll cherish, forever.
Sean, talk to me about your hair. I've known you for a long time, and I feel like every couple of years you got a new hairdo that's making some kind of statement. But talk to me about that.
Man, I've had everything. I had braids in high school. I've had cornrows. I've had bald head. I've had fades. I've had the fro. I've had the nappy fro. And now I have the dreads. So I'm just gonna stick with the dreads for now. And funny story. So as I'm getting older, I started to notice my headline was going back a little bit, and my father's bald, and my grandfather's bald. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna hold on to my hair for as long as I can. So I just grew it out, and let's see, it's been 7 years since I've gotten a haircut.
Wow.
Yep.
So you just had a second child?
Yeah.
About a week ago. Congratulations.
This past weekend.
Weekend. So
Thank you.
What, she's 3 days old?
3 days old. Yeah.
Not much sleep left.
No, I'm running on fumes. But no, man, just blessed. I have two happy, healthy daughters. I have a 2-year-old daughter, Sayla, and just had her little sister, Syra. So just trying to be the best dad I can be, the best husband I can be, while balancing the coaching and the teaching. It can be a challenge at times, but I have a supportive wife, supportive family that really understands my passion for the game and the level of dedication and commitment that I put here into BCC basketball. So I'm blessed and highly favored, as they say.
10 years from now, where do you see yourself? You see yourself still coaching at BCC? What if a private school came knocking? Where do you see yourself in basketball?
Some private schools have reached out. Not gonna say any names, but I don't think I think BCC has been home for me. I don't think it's a coincidence that I ended up back here. Being a student here back in the late '90s. I love it here. It's a close-knit community. Fairly well known in the community. The community's been very supportive over the years. So I don't see myself going anywhere anytime soon.
I know Bill Wright coached here for, 25, 30 years.
Yeah.
You see yourself in his shoes 25 years from now?
That's hard to say. I think, a lot will have to depend on my children and my family and how it grows. And, obviously, if my children get into sports and, who knows, I might end up coaching girls basketball. I don't know. I can't say it, but right now in this moment, I'm really enjoying what I do. Just trying to build a team from the ground up every year and just try to, get the most out of a group of guys and just really get them to buy in and believe in one another. It's been a beautiful struggle.
Your schedule starts off this year about as brutal as it can possibly get, with Paint Branch and Springbrook as your first 2 games.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell me how you get you guys ready for games that early in the season, when most teams kind of hit their peak as the season kind of moves on.
Right. Well, I mean, and on top of having those two tough openers, all of our games in December are going to be on the road because of the construction. So.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I mean, I think the adversity is good early on. Just some good tests early on. But that's why we compete. In the DeMatha Summer League and try to play against the best teams in the area. And that's why I try to set up the most difficult scrimmage schedule that I can, so that.
You tell me about that. Who do you have lined up?
So far, let's see. We have Murray. Who else? Wise is doing a jamboree, so we'll be over at Wise. Wilson, we always get Wilson.
Yeah.
Who's
That's
been
tough.
in the top of the DCIA.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
And High Point. So.
Okay. So is your schedule backloaded? Will you have more home games late in the year, or
No.
will half your games be home and half your games be away this year? Or
No, it's just all of the games in December, regardless of whether they were going to be home or away, they're on the road. So there's no makeup home games or anything.
Oh,
We're just-
gotcha.
all of our home games are on the road for December, and then January they'll be done with the front of the school, so they'll open up our gym back, so we can get our fans back in there. Haven't mentioned our fans this whole interview, man.
Yeah,
Our fans.
Yeah. Talk about the fans. BCC.
I think some of the best fans in the county. I think it'd be a good argument, especially when you're winning games. That state run. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think I've gone to Xfinity for some of the championship games, and I don't think I've ever seen a group of fans. I mean, our fans were coming out. We had a playoff game against Richard Montgomery Saturday. It was an early game. It was a weird schedule. Our fans were there like 2 hours before the doors opened in line, just about 100, just ready to get in the gym and pack it out. So I'm looking forward to getting we call them the Battling Baron Crazies.
The Battling Baron Crazies. Well, Sean, it's been great talking to you. I see you quite often, but to get you on camera and get you talking about BCC basketball has been a true pleasure. Last thing I want to do is just give you the floor. If there's anything you think is important, I know you don't really have a forum to talk to DMV basketball people outside of the Bethesda area, but if there's anything you think is important, the floor is yours.
I've noticed you've interviewed a lot of public schools and privates. I just send a message that public school basketball is good, just as good as any private. I think a lot of times public schools don't get the best rep or the best rap because private schools have so much money and the facilities are just phenomenal. But I think if you take a look at some of the coaches in the county that have had success, Chris Lunn over at Whitman, obviously Paul Foringer over at Quint Orchard, Coach Brian up at Seneca Valley over the past couple of years. There are plenty of other coaches in the county that have done well, but those guys have obviously taken the time and to build up their programs. And I think there are some good quality, high quality programs, especially in Montgomery County and PG County, that can compete at a high level. So just want to give public school basketball a shout out and say that it's just basketball at the end of the day.
Last thing, Sean, pick up basketball game today with all the coaches in the DMV.
Woo!
Who would your first pick be?
Now, when we say all the coaches, can they be AAU coaches, high school coaches?
High school head coaches.
Oh man,
You can give me some.
I gotta give you one. My first overall pick would have to be my guy Petey, Frank Peterson, to the end. What he brings to the basketball court is unparalleled, unmatched. One of the best players I've seen do it. So I would have to go with my man Petey.
Where's he coach at?
We started coaching Rosemary Revolution together. He's still coaching. He does the Alternative Education League.
Okay.
Down in DC and in Baltimore. So he's coaching juveniles in the district. But Frank Peterson, the fourth, one of the best to ever do it. So got to give him a shout out. But coaches, I'd have to go with, man, it's tough. Eric Singletary out of Sidwell. He grew up in my brother's era. Heard a lot about him. Didn't really get to see him too much, but From what I've heard, he can really get after it, and I just have to take my brother's word for it. Darren Mcclinton, he's not a head coach, but he's pretty big on the scene in the area. Had to go with my man Freddie Davis over at High Point. Who's that? That's 4. One more.
Oh, I just wanted one.
Oh, you want one? Oh, okay. I thought you said the top 5, starting 5.
You can keep going.
I roll with like I said, Eric, Darren, Fred, myself, and Petey.
There you go.
I think we take anybody.
That's 5.
Let us know the court, time, and the place, and lace them up.
Sean Tracy, it's been great talking to you. Can't wait to see what BCC has in store this year. I think we're about 35 days away from
yes, sir.
From first practice, and looking forward to it, my man.
Thanks a lot, Mark. Pleasure having you.